Welcome to Open Source Sustainability. I'm Alex Lassiter, CEO of Green Places. On this show, I talk with sustainability leaders to learn how companies are adapting their business models to be in line with sustainability goals. We believe sustainability has to be open source to be successful, and these leaders have offered us a glimpse inside their strategies in the hopes that we can all move forward together. We're fascinated by some of the unique challenges these sustainability leaders face and are excited to dive deeper. In this episode, I'm talking with Scot Wingo, co-founder and CEO of Spiffy. Scot Wingo is a name synonymous with innovation, disruption, and success. As the co-founder and former CEO of ChannelAdvisor, he has revolutionized the way brands and retailers navigate the complex e-commerce landscape. Scot's knowledge and experience led him to embark on new ventures, seeking to reshape the industry once again with Spiffy, an on-demand mobile car wash and detailing company. In this episode, we'll be talking about the earth-conscious decisions that he's made on his path to create a cleaner car cleaning business. From reclaiming water to containing oil contaminants, Spiffy's goal is to make getting your car washed more convenient and carbon-friendly. Scot, welcome to Open Source Sustainability. Very, very excited to have you today on the podcast. We appreciate you taking the time. Maybe we could start off with a quick, tell us a little bit about Spiffy.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Alex. So Spiffy, I'm a serial entrepreneur. This is my fourth company. So started this in 2014. I come from the e-commerce world, and I previously had invested in a car wash, a physical car wash, and I had my first Uber experience around 2012. So the idea was, I think services are going to go digital. And by that, I mean, just like e-commerce, retail went digital in the form of e-commerce. I felt like services had an opportunity to be a lot better. And once you have like that first Uber style experience, it's app based. Now you have control of the situation versus the service provider. And it's mobile and very modern, and you pay digitally, all those things. That was going to be an exciting wave of innovation. As an entrepreneur, I wanted to ride that wave. And so started Spiffy to really explore that in 2014. And what we do is mobile car care. So first of all, we come to you. So it's built around convenience because everyone lives very busy lives, and we want to take this kind of old school way of car care where you go and leave your car for a long period of time, and it's very painful, or you wait in the lobby, also painful. And we want to eliminate that. So we come to you as the first part of it, but then we layer on a digital experience. So there's an app based, we can text you however you want to interact with us. We will interact that way. So that's the gist of what we do at Spiffy. So we started in 2014 with car wash and detail. Then we've added in oil change, tires, and brakes. So those are our four core consumer services. We do a lot of other services for fleets, but that's on the consumer side. And we started in one market. Now we're in 30 and another 20 with franchise partners. So call it 50 markets. And then the other way we think about how Spiffy operates is the type of customers. So about 20% of our business is consumer and 80% is fleet. And we deal with 6 types of fleets: rental car companies, government fleets, owned and operated fleets, delivery fleets like Amazon, etc. So, and just to give folks an idea of scale, we have about 600 technicians across the country. We're only in the U.S. The 50 locations I mentioned, and we're at about a 60 million run rate, just to give folks an idea of the scale we are as it relates to kind of different startup. We're kind of in this middle adolescence as a startup, working our way to adulthood.
That's great. And the car wash business, and obviously in car care, tell us a little bit about what is the intersection of that and sustainability. Like, I know there's a Spiffy Green program, and we can get deeper into that, but just where do those two things intersect, and why even have that as a part of what you do?
Yeah, so personally, I haven't done anything in sustainability till Spiffy, and two things kind of happened simultaneously. Number one, I had a company, ChannelAdvisor, and that company went public. So I was on this board of that even while starting Spiffy. So the two things that happened simultaneously was there started to be a lot of information coming out around ESG, DEI, and these types of things as it relates to public companies. So there's rumblings that the SEC was going to start to put out some guidelines. Also, being in e-commerce, we know the Allbirds guys really well. There's a set of companies, Tom's to go even kind of further back, that really took sustainability very seriously, and they found a customer for it. So that's one thing we can talk about. At the same time, at Spiffy, we were just really in, startups really well, but for those that don't, we were, in 2014, we were just kind of like, we just had an idea. So we were in that like product market fit MVP kind of minimum viable product world. So we had just put an app out and had two vans, and we're operating it initially out of our car wash. And what we discovered very quickly was that in the physical car wash world, consumers are mostly on weekends. But when we put an app out there, everyone wanted their car washed on Thursday, and then Wednesday, then Tuesday, then Friday, then Monday, and then the weekend. The weekend was actually lowest on their priority, whereas in the physical world, it was the highest. And they wanted it done at office parks. So we started servicing customers at office parks, and just like pick on Thursday was our spike day. And then we found that traditional office parks would not allow traditional detailers to be there. And we asked why, and they said, they had concerns around the technicians being background checked and whatnot. The traditional mobile detail vans look like they've been really beat up, and they don't look great at a Class A office park. Then the third thing was insurance, but the fourth one was actually the most important. They said we will not allow mobile detailing due to environmental concerns, and that was a shock. We had never even thought about that. And as we dug into it, what we found is traditional detailers, because time is money in this business, they use very, very caustic chemicals, even hydrochloric acid. If modern like German cars, modern brake systems get a lot of brake dust on the wheels. A way to save a lot of time on that is throw a little, when you start the car service, throw a little bit of hydrochloric acid. This isn't like pure acid that's going to eat the wheel, but a solution that includes hydrochloric acid. And you come back in 30 minutes and it's taken the brake dust off for you. You don't have to really, deal with all the little inner workings of that car. So we saw, to solve that, we had to get innovative. And that's where we said sustainability is going to be important here. And it to me, I felt like it could be a double win for us. At the time, I was like, let's invest in this because we have to, but it probably will also, again, the knowledge that these e-commerce brands were seeing a customer that was really attuned to this. I was thinking, well, it can't hurt. People aren't going to say, I won't use this because it's got sustainability. There'll be an audience that says, I really love it because it's sustainable. So it felt like a double win. So that's what led us into this world.
It's really interesting because what I'm hearing is typically in these, sometimes you hear somebody say, this is very important to me, therefore I did it. It's something that we all should do. It's part of our responsibility. But the other piece of this that I'm hearing is this is very much aligned with your business objectives, like being able to service your customers from the very beginning in this new fashion. It involved aligning sustainability with your actual like business outcomes that you wanted. I'm curious, as you've grown and we're now in 2023, a business a lot bigger, some of this corporate pressure that we've seen around reporting requirements and bigger Fortune 500s like Amazon and places like that. Have you seen this move out of the office park? Are you seeing this with corporate customers in terms of sustainability and working with them as a vendor?
Yeah, it's pretty funny. So just to continue the story, so to solve this problem, we iterated on this many times, but where we landed is we use very little water. We still need to use water because that's the best thing for the vehicle. There's this waterless technology, but you end up, as you know, here, it works really well if your car is dusty, but if your car has bugs, tar, anything on it that every car has, then you have to either leave that on the car or work so hard at it that it damages the car. Neither of those are good for the customer. And then there's also a steam solution. The steam one looks good. It's got this steam wand. It's a little dangerous because it can burn the technician. So there's a safety issue there. But once you follow the hose back to the vehicle, they're all diesel powered. So you've got these like giant brown clouds of smoke coming out and acute steam on the front end. So it's a greenwashing-ish, I guess you would say. So we're like, well, let's stick to water. So that we we stuck to water, and then we use very little water. So we get the water we use way down. We use very green chemicals. So we've done tons of iterations on this and landed on the opposite of what traditional detailers use. And then another thing is our customer is this convenience-oriented consumer. So we're constantly thinking of how do we take friction out of this. So we already had committed to bringing water with us. So we don't go somewhere and say, how do we connect? Hey, Alex, I'm at your house. Can I come in and get some water? That would be weird. Or connect to your hose or something like that. We bring the water with us, both in every situation. So we already had solved that. So then we figured, and it took a couple iterations on this, but where we landed is in physical car washes, there's all these EPA and local regulations around reclaiming the water. So when you go through a tunnel car wash, there's all this plumbing that takes that runoff, gathers it together in a tank, and then runs it through this thing called a reclamation system. I'm a software guy. I can't tell you what happens inside of there, but some magic happens, and then you put 99% clean water back into the sewage system, which cities like. They like net pullers. They don't like net detractors of water. So we put back almost all the water we use in the sewage system. They like a lot of clean water because that helps with whatever processing they do. Okay, so we did the same thing, and we do it in the mobile context. So what happens is we wash every car on a mat. It's a blue tarp-looking thing, and it's got a lip to it, and that catches all the runoff. It's like a little bathtub for your car. Then we suck the water out of there, back up onto the van into a second vessel that we've added, which is the gray water vessel. And then at the end of the day, we run that through a reclamation system. Every city we're in has a warehouse that has a reclamation system, just like a physical car wash would have. And so we basically took the physical world solution and made it work in a mobile context. Okay, so we did that early days to be able to do office parks. And then to answer your question, what we found is, our technicians are great, but you don't want to have a lot of complexity out in the field. The job is hard enough. And so we started adding these fleet clients. So then the technician said, well, if I use the reclamation system at, Mrs. Smith's house, should I use it at rental car, company A's location? Our answer is, early on we're like, no, don't worry about it. And then they stopped using it at Mrs. Smith's house or office park. And we're like, well, that doesn't work. So our rule is always use this. You can get fired for not using our reclamation system. It's that important to us. Okay, so then so some of our customers would say, why are you guys doing this? We don't really need this. And then so it's interesting. And then so this is 2016, 2017. Then 2018, 2019, every one of our big fleet customers hired a chief sustainability officer. So this is like U-Haul, Hertz, Enterprise, Amazon, obviously, all these big customers. And a funny case study is one of them said immediately, like within a week of the CSO being hired, they sent out a note that said, cease all mobile operations. And we were wrapped up in that. And we knew we could guess why. It really just didn't say why, but we're like, okay, chief sustainability officer. They obviously see what we saw with traditional detailers, and also we do oil and mobile oil, and we do that in a sustainable way too. So we went and met with them, and we said, we understand what you're doing here, but this is part of our DNA. Let us show you what we do. So we did a demo, and they said, you're approved. So it actually worked for us. We're the only approved mobile vendor at this one customer because they are leaning into this so much. So it's one of those things where we got a win when we didn't really anticipate it, and we kind of we're early on this trend, and it's helped us in many situations.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty fortuitous timing for that as well. I was going to see as you talk about these fleet businesses, one of the things that I'm sure you're running into is electrifications of fleet as well. So I guess we could probably talk about a lot of changes in fleets in terms of cars on the lot and how they're managing their business going forward. But how do you think about electrification? Is it things that they've asked? Have they asked you for things like that as they're trying to figure out, as Hertz and Avis and all these types of folks are trying to figure out how to maximize or how to transition to an electrified fleet? How does that involve Spiffy? And have they had conversations with you about it and sought for solutions?
Yeah, so we're because this is part of our DNA now, the way I think about it is our carbon footprint is what it is, and then we're working to minimize it, but then we offset it. So, so hopefully the offsets can become zero over time. But we still have to go do our business. So right now, unfortunately, in the EV land, the cargo van that we use as our delivery mechanism is not there yet. You can't get them. The ones that are available. So our default is that we use this platform called a Transit. It's a Ford product. That's our internal combustion engine that we use. Once we hit Chipageddon and the shortage of vehicles, we now have lots of different vehicles on the road just from necessity, but we wanted to be like Southwest where we just had one platform, but the world fought against us on that. But anyway, so that's our platform. We do have one Transit on order. We're concerned though because it has like 120-mile range without any load, and we put a fair amount of load on. We put a fair amount of stuff in the back, so we think it's going to get sub 100, which is not enough for us. But we'll get there. I've had a Tesla since 2012, and the range has creeped in that last decade. The whole thing has gotten 10 times better already. So we'll get there. But so we're always investing and testing in that. One thing we've done, for example, is one step is in our early. So we put a lot of equipment in the van because we want to have everything that makes your car look perfect, that does oil changes and all this type of thing, and even tires. So early on, we would have little generators back there and gas-powered things. So we now have gotten rid of all that. So we now have developed our own. This is where we had to go build our own. So we built our own. We call it a Penguin Power Pack, and Penguin is our logo. And so we put these P3s in there, and that is a lithium-ion system we've developed specifically for Spiffy that powers all the things that we need to power to have electricity on the van. In EVs, that we'll probably still need that because even as these come out, I don't think they have enough juice for us to run our stuff. So we're still going to augment it with our P3. So that was step one, is get rid of all the little ICE engines. So we've done that. And then, we have not received a lot of pressure from our clients to get carbon neutral, but, our aspiration is to be a public company. And, there's a lot of controversy out there. And, I think one of the things we believe strongly, and so it's nice because we believe it. We want to do it. It gives us a win with our customers. And this is an area that people don't, push against, is let's get sustainable and kind of continue to do this. So we're really focused on the E of ESG, and, and I think it'll be a win if and when we do go public.
Well, one of the nice things about it too, again, as I keep hearing this, is all of these things are very much in line with providing a better service for your customers. So these aren't necessarily trade-offs in many cases. It's not the austerity measures that does this. This is about providing a better level of service that you had, a service that's more compliant with what the customer needs, a service that's better for the vehicle, better for the customer, and all of these things are very much aligned with the business outcomes that you're looking for. Which is unique, because I think a lot of folks sometimes, I think a lot of people sometimes have this feeling that being more sustainable means providing less quality, but it's actually been sort of the opposite in your case. Like, these are ways for you to be able to serve better and make your customers happier.
Yeah. And then one thing, there's always some positive unintended consequences. One of the unintended consequences of the mat we put out is it's kind of like a P.T. Barnum thing. It's almost like I don't know, like a circus freak kind of a thing. So people see it and they're like, what's going on over there? And it builds curiosity. It's like part of the show. Another thing we learned early on is we foam the vehicles pretty aggressively. You could argue car wash, a purist would say we over foam the car. It doesn't hurt the car or anything, but we spend a little bit too much on foam. But again, there's something about seeing a soapy car, and then we have the mat, and so it generates this whole part of our brand is this, what is going on there? Let me go. I've never seen anything quite like this. Let me go explore it. So that's another unintended consequence of making choices like this. Another one is, when we wanted to, so, and a lot of these things, they check three boxes. So getting rid of the gas powered stuff in the back of the van, that stuff fails all the time. And I don't know about you, but I hate yard work. And one of the things I hate is those stupid, gas engine. I can never get it to start. And then just
Never
when you give
figured out how
up
to do
and
it.
you're like a sweaty mess, then it cranks up and then
It's
it
it's
dies.
my biggest failure of being an adult man is not being able to start a lawnmower. I can't figure it out. It doesn't
Yeah.
work. I pull my back out. I've ripped two of those cords in half before. I'm trying to pull it so hard.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and so it's a high failure thing, and then customers complain about the noise, right? So it is, it's got the angry mosquito kind of sound to it when we run these power washers and then the generators. So now you see these things, and they're just totally silent, So the customer, so it wins. It's cheaper cost of ownership and more reliable. So that's better customer service. You don't end up at the appointment and something doesn't work, which is terrible experience. It's quieter and it's cheaper for us. So it checks three boxes. So and it's sustainable. So it checks four boxes.
Well, and what I love about this too is this is just all really fascinating. And I know you can go to Spiffy Green and take a look at the website and kind of read through it. But I would imagine, especially for some of your corporate customers and for probably a lot of your residential customers, learning why you made these decisions is part of the fun, I think, of using the service. Like being able to understand why you do that, seeing somebody with a mat, and I've used Spiffy at my house a number of times, but being able to see that out there, you do get to engage with the person, say, why are you doing that? What does that mean? Why are you making these decisions? How does all this stuff sort of play into it? And I think that storytelling with your customers is I have to imagine an engaging experience that most of your competitors don't get to have when they're just firing up an old detailing truck.
Yeah, another one we haven't talked about is oil change. We decided early on to go in through the dipstick. So we suck the oil out of the dipstick. So we vacuum it out. So that's unusual because traditionally with an oil change, you lift the car and then you drain it, use gravity to drain it through this thing called the plug. The reason we don't like to do that is the plug is very finicky. We do like 3,000 oil changes a day, and it's very hard to get that plug in. The threads are very finicky. You can misthread it, you can overturn it, underturn it, and it's cataclysmic. So by doing it this way, it eliminates that failure cycle. But it also, really diminishes in gravity situations. You can imagine there's a lot of situations where oil could get on the ground and run into runoff water. So because we're vacuuming it, it's a great demo. I've seen these old school folks that don't believe we can do this, and it's literally a clear straw that's about 6 feet long that goes from the vehicle to ours. And we turn a button, and then the oil goes zoop and just gets sucked right into our van. And everyone's like, "Whoa, that was crazy." And then a lot of these old school car care people then say, "Well, you haven't gotten the sludge out of there." But what you'll see is the drain pan has these ridges and concavity to it. We can actually move the straw around in there and get into those little concave things where gravity, if the drain plug's over here and there's a area here, there's going to be oil there. We can actually vacuum that out, whereas a gravity is not going to get it. So it's kind of fun to go watch this, kind of dispel all this stuff as part of demos that we do, and that's an example where we do it with oil change. And then we recycle all the oil. So this oil goes. There's people that recycle oil, and then most of the oil our larger fleets use is recycled oil.
Y'all operate all over the country. Is it a challenge to open up new markets because you have to? I mean, the infrastructure around this, from sourcing the materials to, like you said, reclamation facilities and oil recycling, it does feel PT Barnum-ish. Like it is a traveling roadshow. Like for you to get into a market, you've got to make sure. I guess my question is, are you finding that does every market have these things? Like, or do you have to depend and work with, I don't know, with cities and other folks to make sure that those things are there? Like, how do you guarantee in each market that all this stuff is available?
We've built all our own. I'm a big believer in vertically integrating all this. So we're recording this. We're both in North Carolina. We're not together, but in Apex, North Carolina, we have a 20,000 square foot facility, and it's 80% our van factory. So we build 30 vans a month. never thought I would have a van factory, but I do. And then 20% of it is let's say we're going to open up a new area. We put everything we need on pallets, and then we have it shipped out there. So the water reclamation system, the oil containment systems, all these things that we're on version 10 of and are at this point relatively proprietary. We put it all basically in a box and send it out there. So we don't really rely on the warehouse we're renting in Vegas or SFO or wherever we are to have these things. It's all part of even for our franchises. If if someone signed up a franchise for, I don't know, Livermore or something, when they say, all right, we're ready, then a truck shows up with our stuff and it's all very clear. It's kind of Lego blocks, put this here, do this, do that, even signage, everything's like in a box.
What do you think of all of these? Obviously, I think all these are very, very interesting, but was there one sustainable challenge that you felt like just kind of took the cake? Was there one thing that you said, we were looking at this and saying, there's absolutely no way we can figure this out? Like, what's the biggest challenge that either you have solved or you've yet to solve that surprises you?
Yeah. So early on, around 2018, 2019, so it's before COVID. So we had done all this Spiffy green stuff, and then we had a Duke intern who's now our head of strategy. And the first project I tasked him with was figure out how we could do carbon offsets. So we wanted to go ahead and get 100% carbon neutral, if you will. And I had done a little exploring on this and got frustrated within an hour because there's this phrase in gaming, turtles all the way down. So you think you've got an answer, and then you find the opposite answer, and then you just ping pong back and forth. Today, the most of our information is like this. It's hard to know what's true or not. So we found this whole topic was squarely in that world. So first of all, to go figure out what our footprint was, we ran through several of these online calculators, and we came out with deltas of 10 to 20x. So, one calculator, and I forget what it was, it would say, all right, you're like 5 megatons or whatever. And then the other one would say 50 or 200. I was kind of like, well, that's, sometimes if, a pattern you see is if you get some things and they're within 20%, you like pick a middle and be like, feel like you're okay. This was like, I can't feel good picking a middle because there's like such a disparity here. So then we're kind of like, all right, well, we can't figure that out. Well, let's go figure out, if we could figure that out, what offsets would we buy? And then, we would go find something, so I know Shopify and they're doing this Canadian tree project. And I was like, oh, let's do that too. And then someone would be like, that's the devil. You don't do that. That's the worst thing for the environment. They're killing spotted owls or something. I don't know. Or, trees are terrible and the worst things. And then you would go try something else. And everyone would say like, no, that's even worse. And, and then, so it was very exacerbating. So I was very excited when you called with an idea and had solved this. So that was, I knew you beforehand, but then you're like, hey, I've got this idea. I was like, oh my God, we would use this tomorrow. I think you were surprised when I said that.
I was really surprised when you said that. But as we've gone on, I was actually having a conversation with somebody about this morning. It reminds me a lot of like, I think why people struggle with weight loss sometimes, because understanding, there's a million different diets, and it's like understanding what contributes to, weight gain or whatever. It could be everything from good cholesterol, bad cholesterol, trans fats, non-trans fats. And every week it's like eggs are good for you, then it's eggs are bad for you. And then every time you eat something, it's this dizzying thing of like, I want something easy to measure so that I can actually make improvements. But the inputs are so vast. Like in y'all's case, you've got power, you've got water, you've got wastewater, you've got recycling streams, you've got physical products, you have vans, you have all these different things that sort of contribute to it. And so it can be dizzying for any business that wants to actually start doing these things. And I think a lot of us look at some of these examples like a Nike or Patagonia or Allbirds, as these companies that have done such a great job of figuring out how to really understand where they are and make improvements. But when you peel that back, I mean, it is just an insane number of data collection points. It's very difficult. And as you mentioned, the actual way that you calculate this stuff is really hard. And I think probably one of the most interesting things that I've found in this journey and talking to folks like you is, despite what I think a lot of people may believe, a lot of us really do want to make our businesses more sustainable. A lot of us do want to do these things. It's not a lack of interest or a lack of desire. It's just hard. And somebody can only go through enough times to say, okay, every direction that I turn, there's something bad here, there's something good here, and this used to look good and now it isn't. That exhaustion eventually just moves things to the back burner. It's like I have a pile of laundry that if I just keep walking by it, it's easier for me just to walk by it sometimes than it is to like actually sit down and begin doing it. And I think when you can unlock that and help make it easier for someone to make better decisions and be able to actually improve these things, then I think that actually starts to happen. So I'm glad that we could help you on that. But I was surprised. I think I knew y'all had done some stuff on Spiffy Green, but didn't realize that piece was such a challenge for y'all. So glad we were able to help and excited to.
Yeah. Yeah, and then full disclosure, I was like, let me invest, which you kindly did, and then I started this little fund, and we're an investor, so we're happy to be investors along the ride with you.
Being able to have people convert from customer to investor to me is like the greatest blessing of being able to actually do this stuff. And, when you get somebody who's able to see the problem, feel the problem, and say, okay, I can participate in on both sides is amazing. So we're excited to have you and the Tweener Fund join as well. Talk to me a little bit about some of the trends that you're seeing in maybe the greater automotive industry. Like when you're thinking about sustainability, again, maybe it's starting from the products and the chemicals you use and the water reclamation. Like you're obviously connected to this much larger space in the automotive space. Like what are people talking about? Like how real is this? Is this something that 5 years from now is still going to be here? And 20 years from now, is this going to be a core part of what's required? Or is this more of a flash in the pan type thing? Like,
Yeah, so a couple ways to answer that. So we're kind of in this car care part, right? And I wouldn't say it's like a core topic that comes up. We just think of it as part of our DNA, so we don't. We're not out there issuing press releases every day about how sustainable we are or anything like that. It's just kind of part of who we are, and we think that's just how it should be. And we're out there fighting a lot of battles every day to disrupt this 500 billion kind of industry, and it's just part of that. And so we spend a lot more energy on new products, new markets, and those kinds of things. But it's still important to us. And I would say where I do see a lot of it is in the bigger automotive world, and it's usually wrapped up in the EV discussion. So there's EVs have been a hot topic for 10 years, and they're starting to get real, and it gets wrapped up inside of there. So that's where I see a lot of it. There's so I was at a conference, and there was someone from Toyota, and they were refuting that EVs help. They had a much more nuanced way of starting about this, but they talked about if you look at where carbon comes from, and not much is coming from vehicles. Their agenda was they like plug-in hybrids, so they would much rather they think plug-in hybrids are the solution. So they had a whole rationale behind that. But it's just good to see the conversation, right? Where, and then it's been in the news a lot lately because number one, there was that package, that infrastructure package that had a lot of EV chargers. Nothing's happened with that in typical government fashion. I dislike government no matter who's doing what, so I stay away from politics and government for this reason. It just goes way too crazy and slow, and everyone lies and stuff. I can't take it. But then now, as a Tesla and Elon fanboy, they just went and built it, right? So there's like all this blah 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 blah, and they're just like, let's go build this, and they made rational decisions like, whenever we can, let's put it at a shopping center or near a Starbucks, and you're like, as a Tesla owner, you're like, wow, this is great. I can, everyone's like, oh my God, what do you do when you're charging? You're like, well, I go to Starbucks for 5 minutes and come back and my car's done. And it's better than the gas experience where, I'm not a huge Circle K coffee drinker. So now it's been funny to watch all that capitulate in the last 2 weeks. So Ford just announced they're using the charging infrastructure of Tesla. And now just yesterday, GM did as well. And I think everyone thought they were going to go build it out. I think they thought they would, and they realized Tesla, by being early, has locked up a lot of those great locations, and it's not easy. And, they're Tesla is very good at executing on this stuff and has a really great supercharging network. So that's the kind of stuff that's going on in the mobility world around this topic. It kind of comes along with EVs.
We're seeing actually a little bit of the disruption of the traditional like convenience store. So typically, obviously, you stop at a Shell or you stop at a BP or whatever it is, you know what you're going to get. Now you start to see non-traditional convenience store type places putting a charger out front, and it changes the way you get off the highway. You could get off, like you said, you can get off the highway and you can go hang out in a Shell gas station, or maybe in the future you get off and you go to a Target, or you get off or you go to a nicer restaurant or whatever it might be. I've seen a lot in the news around QSRs and other big chain restaurants and chain retailers thinking about, can we use these essentially as like marketing? If we put one of these out front, obviously we can make a little bit of money off of it, but in general, it's to get the eyeballs while you're there. Come on inside and let us show you what we have to do.
Yeah, one thing I learned from e-commerce was that thing that was previously convenient can quickly become inconvenient. And a good example is malls. So back I'm a generation older, or maybe two, than you are. In the '80s, where like malls are so convenient, I go there all day and everything I need is available to me. And then now, you go to the mall and you're like, oh my God, I have to go to the mall. and it's typically very surgical. Most people go to malls for Apple stores. Thank goodness there's still Apple stores in malls, or they'd all be out of business. And it's very transactional. You're there to pick up an AirPod or something like that. You really don't kind of say, I'm going to take 2 hours and browse around. We've just changed in that way. And I think that's going to happen to convenience stores. I think there's going to be so much better if you're going there for a snack or food or coffee. There's better situations. And so I get this question from investors a lot with Spiffy, where they'll say, all right, if we end up in a day where there's at least half of the new cars are EVs, is that bad for Spiffy? And it's a fair question, because if you look at a pie chart of our services, 25% is oil changes, right? So we know those are going to go away or diminish over time. But the answer is that when we look at EVs as a cohort, and this includes Tesla, Leafs, the whole enchilada, and even plug-in hybrids, we get a lot more washes from them. And I see it in my behavior because I don't go to gas stations anymore. You just don't really, you can, but you're not like, woo, I'm going to a gas station. Like you don't have that. You don't pick up that serendipitous run through the tunnel thing. And then also you have to be careful with these kind of cars. I actually took my Tesla through the tunnel the other day, and they changed how the car goes in neutral, and it was a whole calamity. I'm not going to do that again. So then you have to worry about the cameras can get scratched by the increasingly they're kind of saying don't go through car washes with these cars that have all this fancy stuff. So you really just kind of wash your car less. So then and then because you're not outlaying, $50 every week or so on gas, you have more money to spend on your car. So we pick up 2 washes. So we're already neutral. So what we lose in oil change per EV, we make up in washes. But then the dirty secret of EVs is tires. And we're just starting to see people in the industry talk about this. The tire people know it, and they're kind of, game theory is when you have a golden goose, you don't really yell, hey, look, I've got a golden goose. But the tire people are very excited about EVs. So the dirty secret as a EV owner for 10 years is you go through tires at least twice as fast. So your internal combustion engine is 30 to 40,000 miles on tires. EVs get 20-ish. And the reason why is they're torquey and they're very, very heavy because of the batteries. So your EV is much, much heavier than an internal combustion engine at the weight of the vehicle, apples to apples.
Do you think that normalizes out with lighter batteries, or do you think batteries continue to?
I think if we have lighter batteries, we'll just put more of them in there to get range. It'll be as heavy.
Fair point.
Yeah. If they went half as heavy, we'd use twice as many, so it'd stay as heavy.
Huh. I never knew that. I think that is really interesting. Yeah. And yeah, the whole car care industry is going to obviously change pretty dramatically over the next like 20 to 50 years. And the way that I thought you were going to answer that question is you're more nimble. You're able to respond, add and remove services. Obviously within 7 years, you've discussed, I think, 5 to 10 different pretty significant changes, and seeing something and being able to respond to it and change it in a nimble and fast way, which, as the landscape of what cars and how cars are maintained in the future goes, I feel like puts you in a great place to be able to do that stuff.
Yeah, one of my favorite business books, and it's kind of a dry read. I actually just gave copies out here at Spiffy, is The Innovator's Dilemma. So a pitch. It's kind of a dry read. It's a Harvard professor, so it's very academic. So I read this. Someone recommended it like literally 20 years ago, and I read it, and I was like, I get it, but it doesn't make sense. Like certainly companies don't really act this way. And then I saw Walmart for 20 years watch Amazon just destroy them, and they were like, "We're going to catch them. Yes, we know." We're on it. We got this. And then they're like doing nothing. Right. So, I learned from e-commerce that these big companies cannot innovate and they're not nimble. And, a good example in our world is Jiffy Lube. They tried to do mobile. They did some experiments with mobile, and the system rejected it because it's a franchise system. So there may be in your town, you may have 6 Jiffy Lubes. They're probably owned by different people in their franchises. Maybe 2 people own 3 of them or something like that. But there's no system there that is cohesive. So let's say you have 6 Jiffy Lubes in your town, and there's 3 different operators that own 2 each. Well, if one of those can be mobile now, it upsets the whole thing, breaks, because now they can come into each other's territory, and the whole system's designed to be very geographically encoded by fractional zip codes. So they literally can't do mobile because the system is designed 100% never to do mobile. So how do they undo that? So one of the things they've done recently is they've thrown some EV chargers in there. So it's kind of funny because as an EV operator, you're never going to even think of going to Jiffy Lube to charge your vehicle, and you don't think, what's the best place to charge my vehicle? Oh, I'm going to go to Jiffy Lube because I love that lobby experience so much.
The Keurig there is fantastic. Yeah. Best coffee in the game.
Yeah, you may go to a fancy one. I usually get a pot that's been like smoldering all day, and it looks like sludge.
It's the home of the powdered.
Like some sludge.
It's the powdered. You get the powdered creamer. It's where it's the best place to get powdered creamer. Yeah, in a little styrofoam cup.
Yeah, that's where I want to hang out for the next 30 minutes. But it's just kind of funny, they're flailing, and so to your point, I think we'll be able to adapt faster. One thing we are looking at, and we've had some prototypes on this, is how could we do mobile EV charging. So we are finding a lot of our fleet customers are adding EVs rapidly, and they have this problem where they'll invest. So this happened in the Bay Area. So we have a customer, Sixt, SIXT. They're kind of a higher end rental car company, and they put a bunch of Model S's for their customers in SFO. Well, then they had all the chargers put in, but then they leaked. So some of them went to San Diego, Seattle, and then like Vegas, and they didn't know what to do with them, so they just let them sit there for a week, and then they went to zero. And so people don't realize these things lose a little bit of charge every day, as they run the internal systems, and then they will go to zero, and then they're basically a $60,000 brick. So then they were towing them $200 away to charging stations, to superchargers, and then bringing them back and letting them go to zero again, and then charge them. It was so we could we have prototypes. We've got small models of this where we can do top off, but we have prototypes where we could go do mobile charging. So there's a bunch of things we can do there that the customer's going to want.
Well, the convenience of getting your car washed while you're at work and also have it charged would be great.
Yeah. We're also having a lot of conversations right now with charging companies around offering services at the charging stations. So that's an area we'll explore. Also, we're finding outside the Tesla network, we're also having conversations. There's all these data now that the non-Tesla chargers there's like only 20% of them are operational at any one time. So what's the worst customer experience is you get off at one of these quick serve restaurants that has a charger, a level 3 charger, and you're a Ford Mach-E owner and it's broken. And unfortunately, that happens like 80% of the time. So we're having conversations because we have smart technicians on the road across America. What if we ran routes and checked in on those? Yeah, the ironic thing is they're all connected to the cloud, but they say they're good, but then you go to charge them and they are not good. So I don't understand why there's that disconnect, and they'll solve that. But we're having conversations with people that want us to go kind of run through that network, make sure it's working. Because we have feet on the ground, we can do that. And then we could do light repairs on them. A lot of times they need a reboot.
Well, that's what I was saying is I think if you could help to provide that service while they're waiting, then it gives people more, I guess, like efficiency in their life, and they can continue to do what they need to do and not have to, I guess, where we started, take a Saturday trip out to the car wash or Jiffy Lube and wait for 2 hours. Well, Scott, this has been great. I appreciate you taking the time today. The one final question I would have is there anything that you wish people knew about Spiffy that they didn't? Like, is there something that you're doing, maybe particularly related to Spiffy Green, that you wish more people did know about what's kind of under the hood there?
I think we've covered most of it. I would say we think about it a lot. And another thing you and I have had conversations with is, and this springs from, I was in the e-commerce world. I did a lot of speaking, and I ended up in the green room with Al Gore one day. And it was interesting because I was telling him what I was doing at my previous company, and he said, "Oh, you should talk to my investing arm." So he had set up this whole, I forget the name of it, but he has a whole VC that invests in e-commerce. It does sustainable investing, but it loved e-commerce. And his whole thing was they had done this robust analysis that showed if you follow a product, its e-commerce is way more sustainable than traditional retail because the product gets shipped like 12 times in traditional retail and in e-commerce twice if it's an optimized network like Amazon. So they had done all this analysis. And one of the things that we don't know how to calculate, so we don't take credit for, but we know we're having an impact on the universe, is what we're frequently displacing is the movement of the vehicle to the service. Now, it's probably a one-for-one. So like consumers, we'll run a route and we'll do 4 consumers and we saved them 4 trips to the car care, right? So I kind of view that as probably neutral. So we're adding, but then we're also subtracting about what we add. But when we do fleets, we're going and we're doing hundreds of services. And typically, what we're displacing is those cars being valeted somewhere far away and then moved back. So I feel like there we're creating, we're way more offsetting our one trip, by a factor of however many vehicles we're dealing with. So that's kind of an interesting thing. It's a fun thought experiment to think through. And, how can we, if we think about this trip mindset and it's kind of like the product is moving, in this case, the product is the vehicle, how do we eliminate those unnecessary miles that are, they're not getting you from point A to point B. So they're not sustainable. They're really unnecessary in my mind. And then they create a lot of friction in your life because you'd rather be doing other things that are more fun, going to your kid's soccer game or whatever. So that's something we think about, and we don't know how to calculate that, but we feel like it's just kind of like, the icing on the cake of the sustainability measure that we're squarely in the green here. So we've done what we can measure, we've offsetted it, and then we're getting this unquantifiable benefit that we know we're doing.
Well, to me, we have this thought that sustainability is efficiency. It's producing the same product with less resources. And, if you thought about your product as a clean car, when I get in the past, if I would go on a Saturday to drive to a tunnel and go and drive to a shop to go get it done versus I'm already driving to work and you've come to me and you've serviced me there, you've eliminated that waste mile, whatever it is. So there's like a waste mileage that's almost implicit with every transaction that happens at Spiffy. So every car that you service, if you assume that if you assume there's no net gain in number of washes or number of services, every time you're going to somebody to take care of that, if it's at their place of work, for example, they're no longer taking that trip to go do it somewhere else. And if it's fleet, you have the waste mileage from all of those cars going off a lot to a Jiffy Lube or to whatever to go get serviced every month. That, to me, that's the way that I would think about it, because again, the same service is happening. I'm still getting my car wash. I'm still getting the maintenance. I'm still getting the preventative work I need to, but it's happening in flight of where I already am, and it's limiting that waste mileage from wherever it is. So my guess is there's a pretty easy way to back into what that is, but you just have to assume that all of these services would happen anyway. And it's just where they happen versus if they've happened wherever you're headed to. So,
We'll have some beers one day and calculate that out. It'll be fun.
sounds great. Well, Scott, really, really appreciate it. This has been a great conversation. Thank you for taking the time to join us on open source sustainability, and hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thanks for having me. It was a fun conversation.
Thank you to Scott for joining us, and thank you for listening. If you like this show, please be sure to leave us a review and follow this podcast wherever you like to listen so you don't miss an episode. This podcast is powered by Green Places. If you're looking to reduce your company's environmental impact and reach your sustainability goals, visit greenplaces.com to learn more. I'm Alex Lassiter, and I'll talk with you next time on Open Source Sustainability.